Okay, so now I'm happy to introduce Ginger Hendler, who is our speaker today. And there's quite a long bio about Ginger in the this week's announcement for the Sunday program, but I'm going to give you a little bit of information about her talk and a little bit of information about her. Ginger is a former teacher at the Progressive School of Long Island, and she's a Long Island-based artist, which I think most of us know her as. Her vibrant and primitive work is based on her love for storytelling. In 2013, Ginger received an artist residency at the Vermont Studio Center, where she completed a 17.5-foot canvas, The Adventures of Gingerella, based on a journey to India. In 2014, The Adventures of Gingerella and the Peaceful Planet Project, an art installation, was featured as part of the East End Arts Council Jumps Art program to revitalize downtown Riverhead, New York. The multimedia installation featured her love for Indian miniatures and the Buddhist concept of ahimsa, Sanskrit for non-injury, inviting viewers to participate through poetry and performance. Her recent book, The Adventures of Gingerella, was published in November 2015, and a later series of paintings is evocative of ancient symbols and mythology, inspired by her travels to India and Morocco. Black and white sketches of her travels were accepted into a group exhibit in Japan. So she has quite a background. So relating to today's talk, Why Do We Care? Ginger says that she has whittled down her talk about caring into an 18-minute recipe for caring as a means to changing the world. Can being friendly to people, even ones you don't know, help to raise consciousness and create a more compassionate, caring world? What happens when you talk to a stranger? Ginger believes that simple acts of kindness trickle down to a friendlier, happier world. Ginger?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Happy Mother's Day, everybody. I guess it's my turn, right? So I'm looking out at such wonderful faces and names and people that I know and don't know as well. Some I know better than others. And one of my favorite books, The Little Prince, has a part in it where the prince, the little prince, goes to different planets. And in one, he meets a flower. There are fields of these red flowers, but he doesn't know any one. Once he tames the rose, once he gets to know the rose, then he has his own rose. And the same thing happens with the fox. So it's after we tame each other. And I think many of us have been tamed by each other. So based on that wonderful kind of example of how we get to know each other first, and then we care about each other. A lot of people don't care so much about everybody. They care about the people that they know and have tamed and have become friends with. But we don't know we're caring about someone until we get to know a little bit about their story. And I think that we have learned each other's stories to a certain extent, and I become very passionate about caring. I didn't know when I was a little girl that I would grow up to be a caring person. I think I think many of us are just intuitively caring. And when we get to a certain point in each other's lives, we go out and we become more responsible, more involved in someone else's life, so that when we know they're ill, we send them a card, or we call them, or we go and visit. When we have a birthday, we exchange birthday cards, little things that we do to make each other more cared about. That's how we care. There are different significant things. So, but I wanted to read something that I bought Arthur Dobrin's book, Spiritual Timber, several years ago. And I read it little by little because it's something that you have to read in little segments. It's very special. It's a gem. So I found so many things that I could read that had relevance to my talk today. But the one that finally decided for me is the first page, the very first page. And I think it's very important. So here it is. Thank you, Arthur, I didn't ask your permission, but I hope you will agree that it's an honor to have your words read. Open your ears, there is beauty to be heard. Open your eyes, there is beauty to be seen. Open your heart, there is beauty to be felt. And I think this is a beautiful reminder of how we can experience the world and we can experience each other. Oh, I just got myself on speaker. Excuse me. Okay. So thank you, Arthur, and happy Mother's Day. And the thing that Linda did not mention was that initially I was inspired and motivated by a TED Talk that I listened to. And every now and then a little TED Talk will pop up in my email and say, this is for you. And so it was on caring, and it was on friendship, and it was on saying hello to strangers. And it was about changing the world. You can change the world by just being a kinder, nicer, friendlier person. So I decided that I would do something akin to a TED Talk. But when I read the entire structure of the TED Talk, I said, I don't know if I can actually do this. So this feels much more comfortable to me. I need to change this. I want to see all of you. Okay, here we go. So this is very loosely based on a TED Talk because I was motivated by it. And I, said something about being an 18-minute recipe for caring as a means to changing the world. But I do believe that we can help raise consciousness and create a more compassionate, caring world by just being friendlier and nicer and kinder. And I remember being told that I was an idealist and I'm a utopian and all of that, and saying kind words doesn't quite do it. And, a lot of people disagree with my philosophy or my ideology. So I'm sorry, but I will still continue to be who I want to be and how I can be and how can I do the best I can. And, Mel, thank you for that song, because a lot of people here, I think Elaine included, knows that I'm a crier. And that song started to make me tear up. And I said, oh boy, I'm not going to be in good shape to do a talk if I cry right at the beginning. So this is me getting through crying and getting to talk to you and say what I came here to say, which is that we can all be better people. We're all great people. I mean, everybody here is a great person, and I know that. But we can all do a little better. And when I was a little girl, when somebody said to me, what are you going to be when you grow up? I didn't say I'm going to be a caring person. I didn't know that was a possibility. I thought it was within the constraints of, are you going to be a teacher? Are you going to be an astronaut? Are you going to be an artist, a lawyer, a doctor? So I didn't choose any of those things and almost chose nothing, but I did become a teacher, and it was a wonderful choice for me. I didn't realize that I could, in my small way, change the world by teaching young children, because it was my goal not to teach them things or facts. It was to have them understand that they could change the world in their way. So I think that was a very important lesson for me as a teacher, is what I could do with others. And now I've got the honor of being a very important person at Ethical, which is to be the chairperson. I don't know what we call it. We have a membership team, and part of that is caring about the members. Part of that is bringing in new members. And I like to think that they're both, caring about each other is a very important part of that. So I like to do my best, and I sometimes come out on a Sunday and sound quite I sound very lively. I sound very lively when I talk about caring. You know, it's kind of like, I believe we can all care about each other. And I believe that that's who we are as ethical members. We are here to be each other's support system within the organization. We look out for each other. We find out if nobody, you know, if somebody's missing for a long time, what happened? Why aren't they here? So let's give each other a call, and let's send each other a card, or let's, you know, I once called somebody and he said, and I didn't really know him. I just saw his name on the contact list, and I said, well, I haven't seen his name there for a long time. So I called him up and he seemed concerned and worried, you know, like, why are you calling me? And I said, well, don't be upset. You know, I'm just calling because I haven't seen you in a long time and I'm hoping you're okay. And he's, you know, he was still a little kind of skeptical about it, and it sounded weird to him. And I said, well, the other thing is, we live right near each other. We're kind of neighbors. He lives in Seacliff and I live in Glen Head. I'm not sure if you know this geography of Long Island, but it's very close. I can walk to his house. He didn't invite me, but I could have if he invited me. So anyway, I told somebody that story, and you know, people are afraid to call other people. And you know, I did have a script that I wasn't going to read from, or because I don't like scripts. I've been an actor. That was one of the things I wanted to be. So let me just tell you that one of my goals today was to give you a little information about who I am, so that if you're interested, these are things that are not posted in my resume. These are things that I don't generally tell people unless I'm in a women's group where everybody kind of talks about things that we hold confidential. So I would not tell you things about others ever. But so when I was a little girl, we lived in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and it was a very, very Orthodox area. The house that we lived in, it wasn't really a house, it was a row house. I wouldn't even call it a row house. I don't know what we'd call it. I mean, brownstone has too high a meaning. We were not wealthy at all. We had money for me to have ice cream any day I wanted it. So if the ice cream truck came down the street and I yelled up to my mother, and she would send out some money wrapped up in a piece of paper, she'd send it down from the window and I would catch it. And I once went back to our neighborhood with my brother and my uncle and a lot of people who knew that area. And it was still Orthodox, but I looked up to the window and I said, look, that's where Mom, to my brother, that's where Mom threw the money out. And he said, no, Ginger, it was that window. So it's fun sometimes to have a brother who knows things better than you, but he's 4 years older. The other thing that I was going to tell you is that he named me. He was 4 years old when I was born, and my brother named me. He was told by my parents that he could name me. And I thought that was a huge responsibility. But Ginger Lee, my middle name is Lee. So that was, I mean, I'm very happy with it. I like my name. It's memorable, but the most thing people remember me for is that they have a dog named Ginger or a cat named Ginger. And my brother reminded me of that throughout my life, I would find lots of people lots of dogs and cats named Ginger. And I have. So this may not be an 18-minute talk, but it will be briefly enough to tell you that being a caring person is not so difficult. And being a caring person can change someone's life. So getting back to the idea of talking to a stranger, I think that I tend to make comments to people, you know, in the street that I don't know. I have some people who really don't like that side of me. they find, I'm talking to people in the street and, what about me? What about me? So, but it's very engaging, and I like people. I like talking to them. I like getting to know people. I like listening. Listening is a big part of becoming kinder and more caring, because anybody who listens to you, I mean, really, really listens, is a very special person. And I know there are people out there in your, well, in front of me, in your boxes, who are those people. You are those people. So it's gratifying to know that this is something, this is something that I have become more dedicated to since I've become a member of Ethical Humanist Society. And I'm very, very pleased to say that because I joined and often felt like an outsider, even here, where I think I was part of a group that seemed like we were all kind of kindred spirits, that I could trust you all, that we were similar to each other enough that I didn't have to be nervous or scared to say something like who I voted for or things like that, that there was an acceptance, and there is an acceptance, and that is very special. So that is how we care for each other. I'm going to cry again, but so I think that the thing about me that a lot of people, some people know this, but when I was 5 years old, I think my parents split up, and my father took my brother to live with him, and my mother took me to live with her. And it was a very, I don't know, I'm still having, but let me talk about something more fun, like when my Labradoodle Barney passed away last year. These are things that I'm sharing with you because they're important milestones in my life. So many of you remember that my dog died. And if you're a dog lover, you understand. And people would walk through the neighborhood and say, when are you getting a new one? And I heard somebody say recently that you don't say that about people, do you? When are you getting, oh, my mother died. Well, when are you getting a new one? That doesn't sound right. So, but it sounds kind of weird. So people would say, when are you getting a new dog? Or you'll get a new one soon. And according to my husband, I don't think that's going to happen soon. It was very hard to deal with my dog's suffering while he was getting older. He was 15 when he died. And people who know me know that I was an animal lover. So when you're thinking about what you care for, what do you care for? What do you care for? Who do you care for? How do you care? Thinking about all these things out there that are needing care, all these people that are dying in wars, all these people that are struggling to have the right to abortion, all these animal rights lovers. I watch the ASPCA commercial and I can't watch it. It's just so horrible to see these really helpless animals with these things in their eyes. They're not cared for. They're tied up to on chains and not let out. It's so sad and it's so scary. But the thing about caring is that when you care, you develop bonds. You are no longer isolated. You are no longer scared. You are no longer left alone. It's being in this world it can be, especially during this pandemic, it can be very, very frightening and lonely. Many of you here have been very isolated, and it's very hard to get through this pandemic without people, we have all become closer to other people who have lost people during this time, or who have just been very, very ill, or who haven't gotten out at all because it's a scary time to go out. You know, you don't know whether to wear a mask or not wear a mask. You just have no idea how to remain safe and how to keep others safe. So, well, getting back to my neighborhood in Williamsburg. The one thing about being in a neighborhood like Williamsburg at that time, when I was born, and just living in it was very, very safe. It was very, very warm. It felt very, very, I really, for many, many years, I kept saying, when I have a family, I want them to have the same kind of upbringing I did. Just here in this neighborhood, low class. It was, but smart people, but still economically not well endowed. But it was home. It was my home, and my parents were together, and the ice cream man would come, and sometimes rides would come. They were little Ferris wheels in a truck, and little whatever those things are that run around. But all kinds of rides, and it was very because my relatives lived nearby. I just thought it was a wonderful place to be, and I wanted to bring up my children in a place like that. But basically, it was safe, and everything was. My father used to take me to get bagels and cream cheese and lox on Sunday mornings, and that was just a wonderful memory. My father died at 46, so he didn't have a very long life. He and my brother moved to North Carolina, and my mother and I stayed in Brooklyn for a while, and then we went back and forth to North Carolina for them to try to reconcile, but that never happened. And when I was in North Carolina, I saw that my father had taken on some behaviors that were very unfortunate, because he was living in the South and it was segregated. And I heard him call a grown person a man, a Black man, boy. And I didn't understand that. I really just did not understand why he called a Black man boy. And I guess it took me a while to realize that it was that he didn't, the people in the South who segregated Black and white just didn't see Black people on the same level as they were. And it frightened me. And that wasn't the only thing that I did when I was in North Carolina. We lived there for about a year. And the thing that I noticed was that when I was in school for a very short time, I saw that there were separate bathrooms and separate water fountains. And I think I purposely used them. And I was told by, do you hear that sound? That's my dishwasher. Sorry. But I was told by my fellow students that I shouldn't use the colored, that's what they were called, colored and white. And I shouldn't use the colored fountain. I shouldn't use the colored bathroom. And I got into a discussion. I don't know how heated it was, but I questioned that. And I said, but we're all the same. We're all the same. Now, I don't think that's a conversation we would have today. But at that point, it seemed like the only conversation I knew what to say about, people, we're equal. I just wanted people to be equal and have equal rights to the same water fountain and the same bathroom. I didn't know what the differences were. I didn't pay any attention to that. But anyway, so I have wonderful memories of my childhood. My cousin and I would sit on the stoop of my grandparents' house my grandparents lived right around the corner from where I did. So that's another feeling of a safe place to be, because my family, my extended family was there, and my cousin Carol and I would sit on the stoop, and next door was a candy store, Lippy's candy store. And we would go next door and we would get comic books and sit on the stoop and read Archie, Betty and Veronica. We would read out loud to each other, and that was a wonderful feeling. We'd go and get candy from Lippy's and Yoo-Hoo's. Does anybody remember Yoo-Hoo's? Or Melrose? Does anybody remember Melrose? There's my friend Barbara. You remember Melrose? So my father and my brother eventually moved to North Carolina. That was already, I guess, talked about. But okay, so later I moved upstate. I had gone to college in New Paltz, and one of the things that I did after I quit teaching very early, but after I quit teaching, I became a child care worker I stayed with children, but I didn't want to go back into teaching at all. I had had a very bad experience. So I taught in Kingston, and Kingston was a very conservative area, and I was not conservative at all. So I wasn't fired, but I did have my turn on talk radio when they talked about this teacher in this junior high who gave assignments that they thought they were so radical, because I was teaching The Hobbit, and they didn't know what a hobbit was, and they didn't know where did the Hobbit live. Well, anyway, I gave some reading and writing assignments that were a little too radical for them, so they brought me on to the parents were calling into the radio station. So I'm happy to be at Ethical, where I think I can share my deepest, darkest secrets. So I finally got a job at St. Cabrini Home for Youth. That was in upstate New York, not far from where I lived. And I would, when I wasn't bringing my car in to be fixed and having my muffler wired up because I didn't have enough money, I divorced my husband, and I was a single parent and with a very small child. And so I got a job as a child care worker, and it was run by nuns. And then I got another job as another kind of child care worker with drug issues, and that was very scary. I was actually chased out by some of the young women who were there, and they were threatening to hurt me and throw me down the stairs or something. It was very frightening. They wanted me to come back, but I decided that that wasn't for me. So eventually I wound up working at a wonderful school called the Progressive School, which is based on, I think some of you here might know it. I think, Fred, you said you knew it? Yes. So I was right around the corner from you, actually. So if there's anybody here who has a question for me or who has something they want to share, I would welcome that. If you have something you want to share about who you are, or if you relate to anything I'm saying, I would, I'm a person who believes that it takes a village. So perhaps somebody here would like to make a comment or something, share something about yourself that if you identify with any of this.
Ginger, at the end of the program, we're going to have a time.
No, I know about the Q&A, but I'm just including this as part of my format. So
Oh, okay.
I
So-
just if this is different, Linda.
Okay,
I
okay,
mentioned it to somebody before you were here, I think.
okay. I don't know how much time we have left.
Yeah,
for the
well, if we
regular
don't have a lot
program,
of
but
time, that's fine. But if we do, maybe just one or two.
sure, okay.
And yeah, Rich.
Thank you. Your talk evoked so many memories that I figured this was the appropriate place to comment since you invited us. But, especially the childhood memories and having that feeling of trust and safety in your neighborhood and being able to walk out your door and play and not worry about, even though we may have been a little naive in those days, but it was a nice memory that you evoked. So I thank you for that. And I think I'll leave it there. I'll come back in the Q&A.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was amazing. But one thing I didn't mention is that when my mother and I came back from North Carolina, we moved to, I think it was Queens. We moved to a neighborhood in Rego Park. And one of the things that I remember very clearly is that I was 8 years old when I took the GG local into Brooklyn to visit my grandparents. And I just can't imagine, although I think it does today. There are children who do take subways and do take buses on their own to get to school. But I remember this as incredibly safe thing to do. The only thing I was scared of was when I got to Brooklyn and I had to walk to my grandmother's house. My grandfather had a bookstore on Broadway in Brooklyn, and I would go there with him. But I was scared of big boys. I was not scared of people of different colors or people with different outfits on, different uniforms, but I was scared of big boys. That's it. So that was threatening to me. They were playing stickball on the corner or something, and I was 8 years. 8 years is pretty young, but taking a subway. So we care for things now. I don't know if I'm, but many of us here are active in lots and lots of things. This is what is one of the foundations of the Ethical Humanist Society, is that we find different ways to express ourselves in fundraising and activists. Are we against, David Sprinson right now is spearheading something about the oncoming coup in democracy and how to save our democracy. And we have many people here who are going out on limbs and taking chances and excuse me, protesting. So right now, I can think of at least 10 things that people are protesting and active about. One of them is Roe v. Wade, climate change, gun control, abortion, voter fraud, animal rights. And if you're not active about something, then you're probably not a member of Ethical. I think most people here have something that they take a deep, deep interest in. And the other thing that we take a deep, deep interest in is each other. And we need to do that. We need for this to be one of our first priorities, because we are together. We care, we know each other. We've seen each other many, many times. How many of you will go to a seat when you're in the building? Will you go to sit next to somebody you don't know first? Will you always sit next to the same person? So, Linda, am I okay for time? Or Linda?
It's almost 10 to 12, so.
Okay. So I'm here. I kind of meant to bring you in on all of this a little more. And I guess I was wrong about the 18 minutes, but
Well, there'll be a Q&A afterwards, so everybody can,
Okay,
ask questions
okay.
then.
that would
Okay.
be fine. Yes, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for being here, everybody. And I looked forward to your questions and answer. I hope I have some answers. Let's put it that way. I don't need, you can have answers too. I'm just one little fly on the wall.
Okay, so thanks for sharing your thoughts, Ginger. It was very provocative and interesting.
Thank you.
We greatly appreciate it.
I'm glad you didn't all get up and leave.